Welcome back, guys. We were gone last week. We had no Dynasty lunch break, so obviously we were very hungry because we didn't take a break for lunch last week. I do apologize. I had an opportunity to be at the school, help with field day and stuff like that for my daughter, her last year in the elementary school. So I wanted to make sure I got to be there, which means I did not get to be here with you guys, which I did miss sorely. So I'm glad to be back this week. Excited to get into playing some games today. That's right. We're going to be playing some Dynasty games today because, look, I was thinking about it. We have all this fun on the show all the time where we get to talk about the different guys that we would rather have and the Isaiah Likely meter and all these kinds of things. But I don't get a chance to interact with you guys and hear where you guys would do things, who you would take in certain spots, all of that good stuff. So we're going to change that. Today, we will be playing loads and loads of games. And then, of course, I always love to answer questions. So if you guys have questions about trades, about, if you still have some rookie drafts going, whatever you have going on, more than happy to answer any and all questions that you might have going on right now. So excited to hang out with you guys. Hopefully you are as excited as I am to be here. I'm especially excited because my puppy that I showed a couple weeks ago, she has a tendency to, when we leave, she gets all worked up. She gets all hot and bothered, and she poops all over the place in her crate. And I had just been getting back, and I was worried that I was going to come home to a mess everywhere. But fortunately, that was not the case. I did not come home to a mess, and life is good. So didn't have to spend the last 20 minutes or so cleaning up poop right before this. So let me get the chat up. Oh, we've got tons of people already here. See, this is what happens when I take too long to get the chat up. Powerfold's here. Jonathan's here. Jordan's here. ZK Gamers is here. Ryan's here. Drop the mic. Travis. Ryan, a different Ryan. Three Ryan. We got three Ryans in here right now. Sebastian's here. John's here. He said, love the league review, by the way. How much I paid you to rave about my team. That's awesome. Would you trade, Ryan asks, would you trade Amari Cooper for Keon Coleman in Dynasty? If you guys have been hanging out with me, I am a little bit concerned about Keon Coleman as far as him not getting to play on the inside. I don't think he's a great separator. He doesn't have great speed and doesn't get off the line super well. So those things don't typically translate to fantasy football success. He does have opportunity to get a lot of targets, but we've seen those opportunities before on other teams, haven't always worked out. So while on the surface, like the value, trading Amari Cooper right now, especially if I'm in a rebuild for like a 2-1, a 2-2, something like that, would totally do it. That just wouldn't necessarily be the player that I would be selecting with that pick. I would personally rather have a couple other players before I'd rather go Keon Coleman. But the value is absolutely there. Curtis says, one quarterback league. Ooh, I got a little frog in my throat. One quarterback league. If you have pick 2 and 3 and you need a running back, do you go Neighbors and Brooks or just pick Odunze and try to trade back a few spots? I would try to trade back. I think trading back's always the best because I'm a big proponent of taking the best available guy. I would be fine with him at 1-4. I think it's close enough there that you could do it, but at 1-3, Odunze is just such a better player, better value at that point, so I wouldn't do that. John A. Fan, I like that. He's here. Kobe in the clutch is here. Mike says, half PPR Dynasty, Devonta Smith or Odunze. Ooh, that's really difficult. I lean Devonta Smith, but I would not be upset either way. I think you can go either one there, but I lean Devonta Smith. Sebastian says, what's the price of Chris Godwin in Superflex Dynasty? Trying to target him as a wide receiver 3. The guy wants Wicks, and I don't want to give him up. I would be willing to give up Wicks. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you're going to have to give up more on top of Wicks. But if it was like Wicks in a second, I would be willing to do something like that. Wicks had a great season, great rookie year, but he's more than likely the third or fourth mouth to feed in that offense. We know Jaden Reed's going to be ahead of him, most likely Christian Watson if he stays healthy. Then it's kind of between him, Doubs. You also have Musgrave. Wicks is just one of those guys right now that the hype is there, and justifiably so. He played well, but I would rather go a different route rather than go all my eggs in on the Wicks basket. So if I'm a contender, I think I'd much rather figure out a way to get Chris Godwin. Let's see. We've got, Jacob said, what's up, party people? My dude, Jacob. How's it going on me? We have Jonathan saying, got offered Trey McBride for Mixon and Christian Watson. I'd be getting Trey. I would probably take Trey McBride there. Especially if there's any sort of premium. But even if not, I would take Trey McBride. It's really tough to get a top-tier tight end, and he's one of those guys. So, yeah, I'd rather have him. Pittman and Chase Brown or Devonta Smith? I have Pittman and Devonta Smith like neck and neck in my rankings. So if I'm going to get anything on top, even though Chase Brown doesn't do a lot for me, like I'll just take whoever I get the extra for. So I would probably take Michael Pittman Jr. Ryan said, do you train your puppy or have you just trained the puppy? Oh, did you train your puppy or just have trained the puppy on your own? Yeah, we've done it on our own for the most part. She's doing way better. For the past like 5 or 6 times we've left her in her crate, she hasn't pooped anymore. So I think she just seems to have like anxiety for a puppy. And so I think she's now starting to figure out that we actually do come back. And so we haven't seen as much. But yeah, we had 6 or 7 times there out of like 10 where we left her and there was just poop everywhere. But yeah, the past 5 or 6 times she hasn't done it. So I'm hoping we've turned a corner and that is going to be the norm moving forward. Yeah, ZK Gamer saying capitalize on Wicks. Curtis Martin, good to see you, buddy. Jordan said, I watched your QB values video. Now I want to try to sell Hurts and McBride. Would you still have A-Rich, Murray, and then Bowers and Ingram? I'm trying to see. Okay, I want to try to sell Hurts and McBride. Would you still have A-Rich, Murray, and then Bowers and Ingram? I guess, are you saying, would I rather have those guys over those 2 players? Because I would take Hurts and McBride over all of those guys straight up, with the exception of maybe Bowers. That one's close. But it's all about the extra that I can get on top. So if I can get some good extra, then yeah, absolutely. Jonathan saying, contending team, 12-team, half PPR, looking to extend my window. Would you rather have Cousins and Godwin or the Steelers quarterbacks and Ford? I would rather have Cousins and Godwin. I get trying to extend the window, but Ford is a very short-term asset. I don't even know how much rent he's really going to get this year. And as much as I like Justin Fields, we don't know that he's getting the job. Russ Wilson is meh, and roughly the same age as Kirk Cousins. I think they might be like a year apart. So for me, I would rather have Cousins and Godwin. Jonathan said, take that and run, but I'm not big on Watson, so it depends on how you feel. Take Trey all day. Shane says, huge value difference between Chase and Devonta Smith, but production wasn't that far off. Would you rather pursue Chase at the multi-first price or Smith at the lower cost? I would rather go after Smith for the cheaper cost. Chase could have a huge year. But at cost, I'd rather get Devonta Smith. Joseph said, do we pivot off Zamir White? Depends on what you get. I'm never against pivoting, even though I like Zamir White. I want to make that clear. I'm a fan of Zamir White. But any time that you can take a guy that you took in the mid to late second and turn it into a late first, yeah, make that type of move. Or a player of roughly that same type of value that you just like a little bit more. Yeah, cool. Absolutely no problem doing that. I'm not selling him for peanuts, though. Anytime you're starting running back, it's a valuable job. So not selling him for peanuts, but happy to pivot off if I get the right offer. Dequinox says, for a QB-needy team in Superflex, who could you get for a first? Contending teams need a better QB1. have Watson and Russ Wilson along with Fields? Depends on where you think the first is. If it's your first, hold on a second. If it's your first and if it's 2025, you're going to have a harder time getting much. You might be able to squeeze like a Matthew Stafford plus a little bit or an Aaron Rodgers plus a little bit. You might be able to sneak into the Kirk Cousins range. That would be the ideal range that I would want to sneak into. Get a more solid second quarterback, or potentially he could be your first quarterback. But that would be the range that I'm trying to look at. I don't think you're going to be able to get Goff worth a shot. I just don't know that you're going to be able to. John said might be able to get Goff. Yeah, there you go. Exactly what I was just talking about. Zach Knight says, I have Rachaad White as my RB3. Would you trade Scary Terry and some extra? What is too much? So I'm not the biggest Rachaad White guy. I'm happy to move off him. I think Terry McLaurin plus some is a good target. If I could get Terry McLaurin in a second, that's probably what I'd be looking to do because most people value Rachaad White higher than I would. So that would be a move I would be looking to make. Ryan saying the Green Bay wide receiver room is really hard to figure out, which is super true. Are you a video game person? If so, are you going to play NCAA or do you enjoy other games? Look, I enjoy other games, but I'm absolutely buying NCAA when it comes out. We might not even have a live stream that week. I will be that locked in. I used to play the game a ton growing up as a kid. I remember having, what was it? What was the one with Carson Palmer on the cover? So that would have been 2000, 2001, maybe 2. I don't remember what year that was. Somewhere between 2000 and 2002. And I got almost every year since. I remember the Reggie Bush year. That one I played a ton. I think that was 06. Played that one a ton. But I was that weird kid. This should have told you that I had a career in Dynasty lined up because even as a kid, like 10, 11, 12 years old, as a kid, I would actually, my dog is going crazy. You got your chew toy there, baby girl? Yeah, you get it. Even as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, so, late elementary, early middle school, I would not even play the games at times. I would start a new career with a random school, a low-level school, and I would see how well I could just simply manage and recruit the team and try to get them to a national championship without me interfering, because obviously at that point, like, you can have a guy rush for 2,500 yards and, run the sick option game and all that kind of stuff. So I tried to see if I could be successful without ever even playing the game. I would simply just do all the off-season stuff, the in-season recruiting. Like, that would be all I would do to see how successful I could be. So, yes, I am absolutely excited for that game to come out, and I will 110% be playing. Jordan said, I was saying that if I sell Hurts and McBride, I would still have Rich Murray, Bowers, and Ingram on my team. Gotcha. That makes perfect sense, Jordan. Yeah, then absolutely go see what you can get for Hurts. I bet between those two players, you could probably get 4 firsts. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I bet you could probably get 4 firsts for those 2 players, and I think that would be worth it. Jacob said, this may sound silly, but I'm having trouble creating an overall tier list. I have a good grasp on the positional tier list, but I get confused when trying to combine all of them together. Dude, it's tough. It can be really, really difficult, and that's why rankings can be so tough, because all the time I'll even go back and I'll look at my own rankings that I just finished a couple hours before, and I'll be like, would I actually draft a running back there? No, I would draft the quarterback. Like, I would take these quarterbacks over these running backs, and, I have to go back and adjust and things like that. So, yeah, it can be really, really difficult to do. So you are definitely not alone in the Dynasty game feeling that way. Let's see. Who do we have next? Max, stop. Hey, Max. Hold on. All right. Go play. Go have fun. All right, sorry about that. When you're home alone and the dog is going to bark, not much you can do. But, yes, let me get back into the question. Where were we at? Yeah, those can be pretty tricky. They can be pretty difficult overall to do. So totally understand your struggle with that. I have the same struggle, and this is my job. So you are not alone there, my man. Not alone. All right, Sebastian says, which New England wide receiver would you rather have in Dynasty, Jalen Polk or Javon Baker? Are they possibly both avoids? I'm not prioritizing either one. If all things being equal, I'm going to take Polk. They drafted him 2 rounds higher for a reason. But at cost, go ahead and give me Baker. That happens all the time where you have somebody that is the second player taken. And when they're the second player taken, sometimes they just end up being better. We saw that with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Saw it with Kirk Cousins and RG3. This has happened several times. You could argue Gronk and Aaron Hernandez, although Aaron Hernandez, before all of the wildness, was a great tight end in his own right. But you see that happen all the time where teams will take 2 guys at the exact same position, and for whatever reason, the second guy ends up being better than the first. So would not shock me at all. Travis says NCAA over Madden every year that NCAA existed. Totally agree. Could not agree more. Mr. Bakes-a-Lot's here. Sebastian asking, what are we doing with Gabe Davis? If selling, what would you want back? Hard part is, I think everyone's kind of down on him, so you're not going to get much. If you could get a second-round pick, I would sell Gabe Davis for a second-round pick. Ryan said, in my Dynasty League, Rachaad White was traded away for Kenneth Walker, which is insane to me. I'll take Kenneth Walker all day long. Absolutely. Kenneth Walker. All right, guys, I do apologize so much. My dog is whimpering to go outside. I think she has to go to the bathroom. Don't go anywhere. We're about to play games, but I'm going to pause this. I'll be right back. Look at that. I'm back. All right. So sorry about this, guys. This is the life of a puppy dad. Life of a puppy dad. All right. Let's get into the games. I'll try to answer these last couple questions real quick. Let's see. Kevin says, for quarterback scoring, how does scoring sets of 4 points passing TD -1 change your rankings compared to 6 and -2? Would either scoring setting adjust the Superflex strategy? Not a ton. I tend to prioritize the big-armed guys that are going to, throw for a lot of touchdowns just because of the extra boost. I would maybe move them up a spot or 2 versus the dink and dunk guys, but it's not going to change it too drastically. I know on the tight end buys, Musgrave was listed as a guy you're talking about. The second guys can become the guys. Any chance Kraft can take over? Absolutely. That is definitely one of those situations for sure. Jordan says, does anyone else have a man crush? Jordan, my dude, look, I low key, maybe we'll actually do this. I've talked about it before. I think at some point we should do a live Dynasty Nerds event. Live event where we do a live show, which we've done a couple. We haven't necessarily opened it up to the public. They've been on Air Force bases and things like that. But live show, myself, Rich Dotson, Matt O'Hara, and then, of course, Jared Wackerly as well. 4 of us do a live show and then a big hangout, meet and greet afterward. Like, I think that would be super fun to just get to hang out with you guys, talk. And even if we don't do that, if you guys come to the FF Expo, the Fantasy Football Expo, you'll be able to meet us, hang out with us, talk with us, and there's all kinds of other analysts that you probably also follow on Twitter. So that is a great place. That happens in August. Come to Canton, Ohio. We'll all be there. You can hang out. We'll get drinks. We'll talk. It's a great time. I've gotten to talk to so many different people that listen to the show and get to answer questions, look at their teams. It's a blast. But I would love to do a live show. Love to do a live show at some point. All right. Let's see. All right. Let's get into it. I know there's tons of questions I still have not gotten to. Lucas says, as a Northeast Ohio guy, I like my chances to be able to make a live Dynasty Nerd show. There you go, Lucas. There you go, man. See? Absolutely. All right. Let's go ahead. Yeah. Let's get into the games. I think it's games time. I think that's time. Games time. Here it is. All right. Let's start off with Pick Your Poison. We do this one all the time on the show. Here's how it works. I will give you 2 players at the same position with fairly similar ADPs. You have to tell me which player you would rather have and why. All right? So 2 players, similar ADPs. You got to tell me which one you would rather have and why. All right. Let's start off at the tight end position. Would you rather have, with an ADP of 51.25, and we're going to assume startup values for all of these, would you rather have Mark Andrews, the tight end 5, off the board, or with an ADP of 51.75? So these guys are literally going back to back. Would you rather have Kyle Pitts? So Mark Andrews, the tight end 5, or the tight end 6 in Dynasty, Kyle Pitts, and why? Mr. Bakesalot says, I'm in Cali. That expo needs to get closer to the West Coast. That would be cool. I'd be down for a West Coast one. The guy that runs it, Bob Lung, lives in Canton, Ohio. So I think that's how that became the place for it. But yeah, I'd be down. I'd be down for a West Coast trip. We'll just assume 1.5 tight end premium. So not a big premium, but we'll do a small premium. All right, we have In Gold We Trust says Andrews easily. Brandon says Andrews. Mr. Bakes-A-Lot says Andrews. Luis says Andrews. Man, we got a lot of Mark Andrews. We are 6 for 6 on Mark Andrews. Fatima says, love Pitts, but I got to go Andrews. Give me the guy I've seen do it for a while. Andrews for Ryan. Man, this is a landslide. Yeah, all of these assume startup. Jordan says Pitts. Jordan is alone right now. He values the youth and he sees the upside with the new quarterback. John going with Pitts as well. A little worried about likely maybe he'll be used a little bit more in the past. So heavy Andrews early on. But we're seeing a lot more Pitts. Trying to sneak back into this conversation. Mr. Bakesalot says Mark Andrews because he's Lamar's main boo thing. We don't know about Captain Kirk, who he's going to like more. Drop the Mic says still taking Andrews. Jacob says y'all are crazy. Pitts all day. So we've got about 3 votes for Kyle Pitts, and we've got about 14. I don't know. I'm probably miscounting. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 for Andrews and about 3 for Kyle Pitts. With their ADPs literally being back-to-back like that, I thought it would be a little bit closer. Thought it'd be a little bit closer. Unkindness says, if I have a shot at contending, I want Andrews. Lucas says, I'd probably go Pitts due to age, but could see myself regretting that. Yeah, assume startup for all of these. Assume startup draft capital. All right, let's move over to the running back position. Would you rather, and these guys are also back-to-back in ADP. One's at 66.75, the other one's at 67, so they are both right there. One's running back 13, one's running back 14. Would you rather have Jonathan Brooks or Josh Jacobs? Josh Jacobs is RB 13 and Jonathan Brooks is RB 14. While you guys discuss that, I'm going to let my dog back in. Hopefully this is the last time we have to deal with this. There won't be an empty chair for long, I promise. Don't go anywhere. Argue amongst yourselves. The most disjointed live show of all time. All right, here we go. So we have Brooks times 1,000. Jonathan Brooks, 1,000%. Brooks, easy. Brooks, Ryan says, give me Josh Jacobs because of the red zone work. John says, Brooks. Dynasty, I'm taking Brooks. Father-ish. Figure says Jacobs. We have Jonathan saying Brooks. Brooks. Will anyone say Jacobs? No, likely. Yeah, we don't have a lot of Jacobs. It looks like mostly Brooks. And look, that's the route I would go as well. I understand. I was actually kind of surprised to see them this close in ADP. I thought it would easily be Brooks, but Jacobs actually has the higher ADP, only by 1 point. But he does have the higher ADP. Little surprising to me overall that he would be the higher one there. All right, let's go to the wide receiver position now. Would you rather have Ladd McConkey at wide receiver 30 or Jackson Smith and Jigba at wide receiver 28? So wide receiver 30, Ladd McConkey, or wide receiver 28, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Ryan, he's going for Jacobs. Let's see. Jonathan is worried that Lloyd gets a little more usage than people think. I'm looking at it this way. Says John, you can easily flip Brooks for a first. I'd struggle to flip Jacobs for a first. I think that's a fair assessment. Here we go. We have JSN for Eric, JSN for Jonathan. Luis says Ladd. What competition does he have? Loves JSN, but he's got to go Ladd there. John says JSN. Ryan says JSN. Zach says Ladd. And Gold, we trust. I'd rather have Ladd because I think he could be a PPR machine. Matt saying JSN. Travis saying JSN. Jordan saying Ladd. Unkindness JSN. Lucas JSN. Brian JSN. Ladd for Finn. JSN for Fatima. Fatherish saying JSN. Ladd for Ryan. I like them equally. I cannot pick. I understand the struggle. Ladd for Brandon and Ladd for Ian. So it sounds like we have slight more on the JSN side, but it's really close. It's really close. And I think that's a really tough one because both are young prospects. One was probably the better prospect in JSN, but we have a clearer path for Ladd McConkey, and that's where that one gets a little bit tricky to figure out. ZK Gamer says, do we think Seattle figures out JSN this year, worrying about continuing to hold? I don't know. It's a very fair question. Tyler Lockett is still in the way, which is really annoying. I do think that we'd get more JSN this year, but I think we got to wait an additional year before it's really the JSN show. But very, very tricky. Very, very tricky. John, yeah, great point. People forget JSN broke his hand before the start of the year. I even forgot that he broke his hand before the start of the year, so I'm glad you reminded us of that. He should be able to get that job and run with it, but we'll see. Lockett is a very savvy veteran. I couldn't say the word. Very savvy veteran, but I think the cap hit next year for Lockett is just going to be too much for them to handle, and he'll be gone. But you have to then wonder who's the quarterback going to be. I think that's the other part of this equation is one guy gets Justin Herbert, the other guy gets Geno Smith for now, but who knows? Who knows who's going to be the next quarterback? Maybe it's somebody great. Maybe it's Quinn Ewers, and he can't figure out how to get him the ball. Like, who knows who the next quarterback's going to be? So that's where that one gets just a little bit dicey. Just a little bit dicey. All right, let's go to this one. Would you rather have Isaiah Pacheco, running back 15, or would you rather have Trey Benson, running back 21? So a little bit bigger gap in ADP here. But the reason I asked this question is because I'd rather have Trey Benson. I would rather have Trey Benson over over Isaiah Pacheco. If you watch my most recent rankings video, ranking the running back, all I got was hate and anytime you put out a ranking video, that's what people love to do. They love to hate it. So you know that going in, but everyone wants to know why I was so low on Rachaad White, why I was so low on Isaiah Pacheco, guys like that. I just don't believe in them long term. I really don't. I believe in Pacheco a little bit more than I do White, but it's still a 2-down role. I think Benson has an opportunity for a legitimate 3-down back. So I am surprised at the ADP on this one. I would easily rather Benson, but curious what you guys would say. Matt saying Benson, Ryan saying Benson, Ian saying Benson, Luis saying Benson, John and Brian both saying Benson, and Goal We Trust saying Pacheco if I'm in win now mode, but Benson going forward for sure. It depends how the build is going. Let's assume startup. But Jonathan's leaning Benson. Trey Benson long-term, Pacheco for the contending team. Pacheco, I love his running style and he's proved that he can be the guy. Look, that's the thing. That's the hard part is Pacheco's done nothing wrong. And that's the hard part. He's really done nothing wrong. But will he ever get the receiving workload? Will he get the consistent workload that is really needed? And look, the team had to utilize the running game more last year than I think it will have to this year with the addition of guys like Xavier Worthy and then, Rashee Rice going into second year if he ever gets to play. Guys like that I think are going to open up the passing game a little bit more, and I think we'll see them air it out a little bit more than they did last year. Jacob says, I have Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks neck and neck. If Brooks didn't get drafted by my Panthers, I'd have Brooks as my RB1 in rookie drafts. Father's figure depends on the team build for me. Benson's nice upside. Pacheco, if competing, Benson over Pacheco. And Goal We Trust saying startup Benson all day then. Benson in the startup. Benson, since I'm generally not leaning win now in startup. Benson for rebuild. Pacheco for contender for Kobe. Benson just more of a ceiling there. Plus Pacheco beats himself up too much to have long-term value. Benson can be a 3-down back. I don't think Pacheco ever will be. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. Long-term, I absolutely believe in Trey Benson. If it's 1 year, yeah, Pacheco's probably going to put up better numbers this year. But long-term, I think Benson could have multiple running back 1 seasons, which is tough to do. But I think he's a talented enough running back, and I think that situation there with the Cardinals is a really good situation for anybody that's wanting to get a lot of the work. So really like what they have going on over there. in Arizona. All right, let's go to the quarterback position. Let's go over to the quarterback position right now. Would you rather have quarterback 14, Brock Purdy, or quarterback 15, Dak Prescott? 14, Brock Purdy, 15, Dak Prescott. Really close, just 2 spots away from each other in overall ADP as well. I think the common answer will probably be Purdy. I'm not sold on Purdy as a fantasy asset. Maybe I need to see him get that next contract. Maybe I'll believe in him a little bit more. And I get it. Prescott doesn't have a contract long term right now either. But Dak Prescott's way too good of a quarterback to not land in a really good situation, whether it's with Dallas or not. So I'll take Dak, but I'm guessing the majority of you are probably going to go with Brock, but we'll see. Matt saying Dak for him. Father's Figure saying Dak. Brian saying Dak. Okay, a lot more Dak than I thought. Prescott for Jonathan. Give me Dak on that one for Ryan. Luis saying Dak. He's also a Purdy hater. But here come the Purdy truthers. Ryan, Finn, and Mason all saying Purdy. And Kindness saying Dak. Zach Knight saying Dak. Dakota using the official name. I respect it for Travis. Dak for Ryan as well. Dak, but it's really close for John. Brandon saying Dak. I agree. I'm not sold on Purdy until he gets paid more than $1 million. I think the common answer would be Purdy. Famous last words, right? Yes, exactly. Like 70, 80% are going with Dak. Ian saying people like Purdy more. I've had a hard time selling. I'll take Purdy because he should get a bump when he signs that contract. I can respect that and understand it. Sorry, one more Benson question for Matt, saying any worry about him being like Spears, veteran in the way this year, and then they bring in another guy next year. It's entirely possible. The difference between Benson and Spears for me, although I still absolutely love Tyjae Spears, the style that they play with. Now, could they bring in another back? Yes, but it would be probably more of a complimentary back or receiving back, I would assume. But you never know what teams are going to do. I didn't think they were going to bring in somebody in Tony Pollard that is super similar in style of play. So you never know exactly what NFL teams are going to do. But overall, I'm not as worried about that for Trey Benson. But it's going to depend on what he shows this year. But I think he's going to show enough that I can't imagine them taking anybody before the 4th round. Day 3, sure, they could take somebody on day 3, but they're in the 3rd round. I don't see them taking anybody super early. Let's see. Luis saying 15-4 on Dak through the first 19. Sold Purdy for Burrow in Dynasty. I'll do it all day long. Wow, got Joe Burrow. That's a fantastic deal for you. Fantastic. Well, bravo. Well done. All right, let's get a couple more here, and then we will switch over to the Isaiah Likely-o-meter. All right, let's get this one in. Would you rather have Puka Nacua, who is wide receiver 7 in ADP, or Malik Neighbors, who's wide receiver 10 in ADP? So we've got Puka Nacua, who's wide receiver 7 in ADP, or Malik Neighbors, who's wide receiver 10 in ADP. Let's see what you guys have here. Let me grab a drink, grab my beverage. Oh, now the puppy's asleep. See how she is. All right. ZK Gamer saying Puka. Brian's going with Neighbors. So 1-1 so far. I anticipate this one being close. Love Puka, but the draft capital matters to me. So Neighbors. Brandon going Puka. And Kindness going Neighbors. John going Neighbors. Joshua. Hey, Joshua Nims. Are you waiting for the JSN breakout or trying to move him for other wide receivers like Collins, Waddle, Higgins that have shown more upside? If I could get Waddle, absolutely. Higgins is close. I could go either way on that. Collins is in a tough spot because I do believe in Tank Dell quite a bit. So I don't know if he'll ever get that alpha role. But then again, I'm not sure that JSN's ever going to get the alpha role either. So for me, out of those 4, it would probably go Waddle, Higgins, JSN, Collins is probably the order I would take, but very close. Finn's going Puka. Let's see. In Gold We Trust saying it's a tough one. I agree on the draft capital. We'll go Neighbors. Give me Puka for Doc Mitchell. My guy's been working lately. I see him putting out articles. If you guys don't follow Matthew Mitchell, a.k.a. Doc Mitchell's on Twitter, I would tell you how to follow him, but I still always mess up his @ So put your @ in the chat there, Doc. I know he's a good dude, great writer. Really appreciate him. He's been doing stuff with us for a while. Ryan say Puka, unfortunately, if Neighbors went to the Chargers, I would have been all in. Neighbors, upside is higher. Puka for the fatherish figure. Is that bubbly? I'll go Neighbors. Not this time, although I do love a good seltzer water. Especially when I'm trying to be a little bit more healthy, which I've been pretty bad so far this year, if I'm being honest. But when I'm trying to do a better job being healthy, I like bubbly, but my favorites are Waterloo and what's the other one called? It's like something Frost or now I'm blanking on it. But yeah, I love a good seltzer water. Jonathan saying, as much as I love Puka, I think I gotta go Neighbors. Jason saying Puka, that system is proven. Lots of good points in here. I feel like once we see a player perform, the draft capital isn't factored in as much. Puka broke records. I hear you. Ian's leaning Puka, but he has a lot of Neighbor shares. Leaning Puka for Eric as well. Mr. Bakes a lot. I have an Australian Queen Island puppy, so I feel your pain. There you go. There's Matthew Mitchell's @ for his Twitter. He's told me how to pronounce it before. I still get it wrong. All the time. But he is the reason we call him Doc is he's got his doctorate in history, I believe. Oh yeah, he just said it there. Historian nerd. It's from the yellow journalism period. There we go. See, he's just so much smarter than me. 8 to 10 says Luis through 18. So understandably, very, very split. Lucas says Waterloo is so much better than a lot of the less flavored seltzers. Totally agree, dude. Totally. Polar. That's the one. Yep. Polar. Wasn't Frost. Yes, Polar. Those ones are really good, especially the raspberry lemonade. Ooh, that one's really good. I like that quite a bit. All right, let's go ahead and get into our Isaiah Likely-o-meter. If you're not familiar with this, on the Isaiah Likely-o-meter, you can go from 1 to 10, 1 being no chance that it happens, all the way up to 10 where it's a lock, a certified lock. For some reason, 5's the middle, should be 5.5, but it's not. 5's the middle for 50-50, and you can go. Here's how you can give points. Quarterbacks, you can give quarter points to, so you could do like a 4.75 if you wanted to. Running backs, aka halfbacks, you can give half points to. So you can do 4.5, 5.5 if you want to. You can still do full points. Wide receiver, wide open. Give any sort of decimal point that your heart desires. But then tight ends, we got to keep it tight. Whole numbers only. Okay. So that's how this works. Here we go. Let's get to our number one question here. On the Isaiah Likely-o-meter, Christian McCaffrey once again finishes as the number one overall running back for the 2024 season. 1 to 10 on the Isaiah Likely-o-meter. How likely is that to happen? He is one of the best that we've seen in a long time, but continuing to repeat is tough to do. He's getting a little bit older. There's some good young and up-and-comers. Guys like Gibbs and Bijan and Brees, and Taylor could have a breakout year this year. Maybe Achane just goes nuts and his yards per carry doesn't diminish at all. So what do you got there? 1 to 10 on Christian McCaffrey. Ryan saying 10. There is no chance it does not happen. Absolute certified 100%. Luis saying 8.5. Ian saying 7.5. Brandon saying 8.5. Unkindness saying 9. Jonathan 7.5. 8.5 for Waggle there. Powerfold saying 3. 3. That's a lower number than I expected, but I respect the number because it is really difficult with injuries. It's difficult to repeat as the top overall guy. 5 for Andrew Miller, 8 for John. Matthew Mitchell saying 7.5. Father saying 7.5. Lucas saying 3. There's other guys I could see easily taking it this year. For Lucas, 3.5 for Eric. I don't see repeats too often. If CMC stays healthy, then I got him at a 10. It's tough to always stay healthy, but it's tough to knock off Christian McCaffrey if he is healthy. 7.5 for Ryan. Mr. Bakes a lot has a 9 on it, and RB1 for sure. The RB1, very different. Travis saying a 6. So, all right, most people in that, like if I were to take an average, we're probably looking at about a 7 to a 7.5 average across the board for everyone here. All right, let's get to the next one here. Isaiah Likely-o-meter, that we have more than one rookie quarterback as QB1s this year. So not just one, not just Caleb or Jaden or Drake May or whoever, but that we have more than one rookie quarterback finish the year as a top 12 guy. Look at Luis. Man, Luis is like the official statistician of the Dynasty lunch break. Dude is crushing it. And I said it roughly like a 7 or so. So clearly my quick math was pretty good. It says 7.11 average through 18 votes. Thanks Excel. If healthy, 7.5. Bijan Brees could get a huge uptick in receptions. All right, so getting into this one here. Odds that two rookies end up being QB1s this season. ZK says 7. 4 for Andrew. We've got a 6.75. That's right. You can use quarter points for quarterbacks. Father's figure saying 2. Very unlikely. Doesn't like it. Ian saying 4. Ryan saying 7. John saying 4.75. 5.5 for Horwitz there. Waggle saying 4. 4 for Power Folding saying Caleb doesn't make it. Woo! I love it. Brandon saying 4. Eric saying 4.5. Lucas saying 3. About 2.5 was where I was at. I'm a little lower than I think the average consensus here. We've got 3.25. Daniels will do it. Caleb could be close for Ian. It's tough. We do not see rookie quarterbacks get inside the top 12 very often. And even when we do, often it's just one guy. Getting multiple in is very, very rare to see. Now, there's some good quarterbacks in this class. And all of a sudden, one of them could come out of nowhere and end up being a quarterback one that we just didn't expect. But I think the likelihood is definitely below 50-50. Jacob saying 5. I could see Caleb doing well in his first year with those weapons. I could also see Daniels getting up there due to his rushing upside. Ryan saying 3. Matthew Mitchell saying 4. There's definitely a shot, but it's going to be hard with only Williams, Daniels, and Nix really looking like they'll start from the jump. Travis saying 2. These guys are just different this year. I respect it. It's tough for one to be top 12, let alone 2 for John. All right, let's get into our next one. Our next one here, Saquon Barkley will have his best statistical season this year with the Philadelphia Eagles. Scale of 1 to 10. 1 being no chance. That rookie year was way too freaking good. Or 10 being it's a lock. He will absolutely have a career year. Luis saying we've got a 4.32 on the average of more than one quarterback being a rookie. Or hopefully we have more quarterbacks than that being rookies. Being a QB1. Shane said, why am I so high on Wicks versus the community? Showed out at the end of the season. Green Bay wide receiver core is uncertain. What am I missing? I think that's the thing. I think it's the uncertainty that makes it tough. Could he? Sure. But you look at some other plays, like you look at Godwin, you know for sure he's going to be a top 2 guy in his offense. And we've seen him be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver before. we've seen flashes from Wicks, but he's got a long way to go. So I think that's why for me anyway. That is why for me. All right, here we go. Jacob saying 10. He is absolutely going to have the best season of his career. 1 from Jared Wackley says Kenneth Gainwell is more talented. Woo! J-Wack's such a troll. Such a troll. We've got Brandon saying 3, 8.5 for Luis. He's feeling real confident. Ian, not so much at a 3. Ryan saying a 6, 9.5 for Jonathan. 2 for Jason said not enough receptions or touchdowns in this offense. Andrew Miller saying 8. Waggle saying 3.5. Eric going with the 2.5. Fatherish figure at 6.5. Lucas with the 7. John saying 6.5. Powerfold saying 7. 8 for Ryan. 7 for Travis. Matthew Mitchell said 10 with a condition. He will have the best rushing season, but won't hit his career best as a pass catcher. That's fair. That's fair. Saquon's best season, 5.95 on 19 votes, says Luis. So we're almost at a 6. So overall, people thinking this is more than likely going to be the best season of his career. And if that's the case, you guys should be drafting him higher. If you think there's more than a 50% chance that he has the best season of his career, I think we forget how good he was as a rookie. Let me pull up those stats. Because in best ball and things like that, he should be a top 3 running back off the board then. Because as a rookie, let's see the numbers that he put up. He put up, let's see, where's stats? Of course, oh, there's. In his rookie campaign, he put up 1,300 rushing yards, second most of his career. He had 1,307 versus 1,312 and 22. He had 11 rushing touchdowns. That's the most of his career. And then as far as receiving work goes, he had 721 receiving yards to go along with 91 receptions and 4 touchdowns. Man, that's a really good year. So if you guys think that he could top it or get anywhere close, you should be taking him as a top 3 back in redraft, because those are absurd numbers. Will be really interesting to see. All right, let's get back to it. The Isaiah Likely O-meter. Let's go over to the tight ends. Brock Bowers will be a top 6 tight end finisher in points per game this season as a rookie. Brock Bowers, as a rookie, will finish as a top 6 tight end in 2024. 1 to 10. Remember, tight ends, we got to keep it tight. Whole numbers only. Tight ends, whole numbers only. Brock Bowers is a top 6 finisher in 2024. More guys kind of coming to the defense of Saquon Barkley. Brandon saying a 6. John saying a 4. Travis says a 0. We don't even have a 0 on the scale. And he said, look, no chance. 0% chance. Don't even ask this question. Ryan saying 3. Luis saying 5. Ian saying 2. Waggle saying 6. Thinks it's a more than likely to happen than not. Eric saying 2. ZK Gamers 4. Powerful 2. Ryan 2. Lucas with a 4. I'm right around a 3. I almost went 4. I'm at about a 3 overall on this one. I think there's a chance, but I'm worried early on he might not get quite enough work, but I think he gets involved more into the offense. I think we see guys checking it down, and I'm going to feel better about him. And I don't have the numbers to back this up. I should probably look into it a little bit more before I say this, but I would feel better with a guy like Gardner Minshew, a little bit more of a veteran, understands when to check it down a little bit more than I would a young quarterback like Aiden O'Connell. So I'd be kind of curious to see the numbers on that. I'll look into it as well and see. So we've got a few more votes in here. We've got a 3 from Doc Mitchell, 2 from my man Dan. So, guys, that about wraps up the show today. Thank you for bearing with me during the interruptions of Doggate and the secret pooper over here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Appreciate you guys playing the games. I always enjoy playing games, so hopefully you guys enjoy playing games as much as I do. We will definitely do this again. I had a blast doing it. We've got some more mocks on the way. We've got some new things. We are going to have the capability to bring on guests soon. Now, I also eventually want to start showing film, but we did a test run of that. It did not go well, but I have upgraded my internet and should be able to do more things like that in the future. So lots of goodness to be had moving forward. So appreciate you guys. Powerful said, today's show is a solid 8. You know what? I'll take that. Above average, not perfect. Still room for improvement. We shouldn't leave the show this much, but solid show. Let's see your dog, Ryan. I will definitely show your dog some other time, but she's asleep right now, and I do not want to wake her up. Appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much for the time, and we'll be back right here on the Dynasty Lunch Break next week and every week, unless I have like some sort of weird conflict. But we'll be back here next week and every week on our YouTube page. Make sure if you have not subscribed, subscribe. Do it now. Appreciate you guys. See you next week.